Do you want to hear something super exciting? I hope you're excited because you are a part of this. You are listening to this episode. That means you have downloaded an episode. And at the time of this recording, we are about 60 downloads away from 20,000 downloads. And that is amazing to me. We are under 9 months as a podcast, and that is way more than I was expecting to get in this time frame. And I am just so thankful for everybody that has downloaded or shared or reviewed this podcast. If you are here, thank you so much for being here. By the time this episode airs, we will hit 20,000 downloads, and that is the trajectory that we're going. And I am just absolutely grateful for each and every one of you. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for being here. Today, we are actually going to be talking about procrastination. And the reason we're talking about procrastination is because I am naturally a big procrastinator. So I do have a few tips to help walk you through next time you are in that funk of pushing everything off and then getting overwhelmed later. That's not fun. So we're going to go through 5 steps to get you out of that funk and stop procrastinating. Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renae Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast. So, funny enough, the reason that this whole topic came up was because last weekend I went to my parents' house, and leading up to that, the whole week before, I had it on my task list to in my work my my workflow for my business to record episodes before I left. And what I was doing is I was procrastinating, and it was mostly because I was listening to an audiobook that my sister had recommended to me, and I was so engrossed in this book that I could not stop listening. Every free chance I got, I had my earbuds in and I was listening to this book. So, what happened is I was listening while I was working, but because I am a horrible multitasker and I can't do things that involve my brain, like I can't do things that involve words, especially at the same time as listening to something else. Like I could do, like graphics or things like that while I'm listening to something, but I can't obviously write an outline for a podcast episode. And so I was listening to the book and I was like, oh, I have time. I have time. I just kept pushing it off until we got closer to the end of the weekend. It was a really busy week. So we had things going on in the evenings. I couldn't do an evening recording. I was distracting myself in the morning session. And so I couldn't, or so I wasn't, I could have, I wasn't doing it in the mornings. And then obviously I work throughout the day, so I can't record it during my day job. So I just kept pushing it off. And eventually I was like, oh, I'm going home for the weekend and I have not recorded. So I grabbed my earbuds to do it maybe like on the drive, or like I figured it would be quiet. I could just stop and pull over to the side of the road and record something and do it on from my phone and then have a recorded episode by the time I got home. And that didn't happen either, just because I wanted to get there. And so come Sunday night, I got home and I told my husband, I'm like, I'm really sorry. I have to go and record the episode for tomorrow morning so that I could get it out. And I'm like, I don't know why I procrastinate so much. And I was just so frustrated with myself. And he's like, you know what? Maybe you should do an episode on that. So that's how it came to be, because I am the queen of all procrastination. Like it's really bad, and I have gotten much better over the years. This story doesn't relay that, but I have gotten much better over the years, and now I can recognize when I'm procrastinating and I can get myself out of it pretty quickly if I make it a priority. But you have to also be able to recognize when you're doing it and you're not just making excuses, because it's really easy to just make excuses. And this is what I used to do. I just used to say that I was just so busy and like, I just didn't have time to get things done, or I just needed to work on it a little bit more because it wasn't how I wanted, and I was just focusing on perfectionism. And both of those are just forms of procrastination for me. And yes, there might be some cases where you are really busy and there is absolutely no time to do anything else. And I have been in those seasons of life where I was truly just overwhelmed with busyness and tasks that I could not keep up with no matter how much I organized. And that was a short season of my life, thankfully. But any other time that I say I'm busy, really, I'm just procrastinating or I'm not prioritizing my time and I'm just disorganized. It's not about, or I'm being a perfectionist. It's just a form of procrastination. And so now I can get myself out of that funk when I can actually recognize what I'm doing. So I wanted to share with you those 5 steps today. So if you are anything like me, we can help you get out of that funk. So, number one, you need to recognize the distractions. So, this can be a lot of different things. It can be your phone, it can be TV, it can be music if you're somebody that listens to music all the time or podcasts all the time. It might be those audiobooks that can really pull us in. It might be activities or hobbies that you're working on, and it might even be your work that is pulling you and distracting you. So, you have to really recognize what it is that is your main distraction or what is happening at that time. If you're a big social media user, that is a huge one for a lot of people, is using it as a distraction. You might not even be realizing how much time you're spending on any of these things until you start recognizing where your time is going. So that's number one. You have to actually take the time to recognize what is distracting you. Number two, you need to remove those distractions because you need to clear your head and clear your space so that you can actually step away and like reorganize your thoughts. That is the biggest thing for me, is if I just keep, listening to that audiobook, I'm not going to be able to mentally organize my thoughts in the way that they need to be done to get me out of that funk. I keep using the word funk. I don't know why, but that's what it feels like. But to get me out of that and be able to kind of step back and tackle what it is I'm supposed to be tackling, because if I can recognize it and if I can actually clear my head enough to think about it, I can create a plan, which goes into our third step, which is assessing what your project is or what you're trying to tackle and create your plan. You need to organize your tasks by priority. So, if you have a project or you're trying to accomplish something, you actually need to stop what you're doing and take a step back so you can kind of do a little bit more of a big picture vision. So, for example, because this was a recent situation for me, I didn't do my podcast episode. I didn't record my podcast episode. So I was using the audiobook as a distraction and not getting done something that I needed to get done. So what I was able to do was shut off my audiobook, and I was able to recognize that, shut it down, and then I was able to kind of pull my laptop out and really think about what it is I need to do. Now, thankfully, we have a workflow set up for podcasting, but there are several steps that I need to do. So I needed, number one, I needed to figure out what it was that I was going to talk about on that episode. And I needed to review different feedback from listeners. I needed to review my focuses on what we were talking about, what we have been talking about, what we're going to be talking about in the future, to make sure it all aligned. So I needed to do a little bit of research, and then I needed to decide the topic, that I needed to write the outline, and then I needed to actually record the episode, and then I needed to go into all the post-production stuff to get it to Clara so that she could set up the email and all of that stuff and get the marketing aspect out for the episode. And so, in order for me to stop procrastinating, I needed to go through these steps. Even if I wasn't physically thinking about these steps, this is what I actually did to pull myself out of that mode of just distracting and procrastinating myself. No, distracting myself and procrastinating. So you have to actually go through and decide, okay, what is it that actually needs to be done? And what needs to be done first? What needs to be done second? What are the priorities so that you actually have an organized list? Because one of the things that also for myself, one of the things that causes me to procrastinate is that I don't have a clear plan. And if I don't have a clear plan, it feels a little chaotic and I start getting a little overwhelmed. And then that's where like that perfectionist mode slips in where it's not just exactly how I want it. So I need to, tweak it a little bit more. But that is what is making me waste time and it's never going to be exactly as I want it. It's something that you have to learn as you go. And that is just life. Like sometimes mistakes are going to be made. Sometimes things are not going to be perfect. Most times things are not going to be perfect. But I have to get my thoughts in order. I have to organize a plan. And then I have to start with the plan. I have to start with the first task. Otherwise, I'm never going to stop procrastinating. So, number 4, once I have my clear plan, I need to set a time frame of how much time I'm going to work on it. So this obviously depends on what project you are going to focus on or what you're trying to get accomplished. So it might be 5 minutes, it might be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, it might be, a full day's work. Whatever you're focusing on, you need to give yourself a time frame. And I really love having a short time frame to start. I actually like setting a timer and I usually set a timer for 20 minutes and that will get me rolling on my first tasks. But that's a personal preference, and sometimes I will change the amount of time based on the project. So if I am doing, a little bit of research and I have to get my brain in that mode, sometimes I might just turn my timer on for 5 minutes and I dive into those reviews. It keeps me focused and I can actually like just get through and I can start reading all of those comments to see what pops out at me on what could be a new podcast episode for you guys. So that is something that I think is super helpful is to plan the time frame. And also if you keep it short, it doesn't seem so daunting. So it is much easier to get started if it's like, okay, I can do 5 minutes rather than looking at this giant project and time frame without giving yourself an actual time frame to start because you can always add more time, but giving it a short time frame to begin with will help you get that ball rolling. And speaking of getting the ball rolling, we go into number 5 and step 5 is to find a task to do first that gives you an easy win. And the reason I like this one, I know there's a saying that is like eat the frog. And I think that is what it is, eat the frog. And basically what it means is you tackle the hardest project first because then that is done and out of the way. And then the rest of your day will flow easier. I'm a little bit of an oddball, I guess, because for me, it's easier to have an easy task first because then I can actually have that easy win and then I can move into the next thing and then once I get rolling I'm on a consistent pace and I can actually accomplish a lot more when I start checking those boxes and getting them off of my workflow. So that is helpful for me. So if the whole eat the frog concept doesn't work for you, try flip-flopping it and doing an easy task first. And it made sense after I started thinking about it. I know if you've been listening to this, you know that we followed Dave Ramsey to get out of debt, and he has the snowball. It's the debt snowball program to get out of debt, and you always tackle your smallest debt first because that gives you that easy win and then it snowballs and you take the money you were putting towards that smallest debt and then you go towards the next biggest debt and you keep doing that and it allows you to pay off those smaller debts over and over and over and you start building up so that all the money you were putting towards the smaller ones start going to the bigger ones. So it allows you to have those easy wins right away so that you have more potential or more um of a drive to continue going. And then there's also the avalanche method, which is more similar to the eat the frog concept, where you actually tackle the debt. I believe it's you tackle the debt with the highest interest rate first, and which tends to be a bigger debt. And you got to go by the interest rate rather than the amount of the debt. So a lot of times that could be one of your bigger debts. And I think I'm explaining that right. But basically, when you do that, yes, you save more money in the long run, but it seems a lot more daunting if that one that you're tackling first is, say, a $20,000 student loan versus a $1,000 credit card debt. So it really just depends on what you're doing, what method works best for you. But for us, we loved the Dave Ramsey baby step program because we had those small wins. And this step in here is very similar to that, is when you get your plan going, give yourself an easy task first that gives you an easy win. And then you start to get that momentum to keep going, and you will find that you will accomplish a lot more in a shorter amount of time. So hopefully, that will help you get through if you are feeling like you are in a funk and you're pushing things off, and maybe you're not even recognizing that you are procrastinating, but maybe stop and ask yourself if you're procrastinating. I think this is super helpful when you are, especially like in the mornings when you're doing like your morning routine, to really like have some quiet time. Make sure you're stopping throughout the day and having some silence. Even if you have to close yourself off in a room somewhere, have some silence to really think about what is happening in your day and if you're using your time to the best of your ability, using your time wisely, and to see if you need to make any changes. And I will go through really quickly, recap those 5 steps to help you get out of the funk and stop procrastinating. Number 1, recognize your distractions first. Number 2, remove those distractions so you can clear your head and clear your space. Number 3, assess your project and create your plan. This is when you want to organize your tasks by priority. Number 4, set a time frame for your first, either task or your project, whatever it is. Give yourself a time frame that you're setting. Number 5, find a task to do first that will give you an easy win. Now, if you are a procrastinator, use these 5 steps, see how they help you, and come tell me about it in our Facebook community. You can join us there for free. It's a free community at facebook.com/groups/theroutineadvantagecommunity. And I would love to hear about anything that you have tried that has been on these podcast episodes. I can't believe we've hit 20,000 downloads by the time this airs. That is so exciting. And you are a big part of that because you are here listening. And I am so grateful for you. So I hope you enjoyed that episode, and I will see you on Thursday. Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.